Welcome to another episode of the Six Figure Vet podcast, where we showcase success stories of Black veterans that have successfully unlaced the boots. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the Six Figure Vet podcast on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Now, today's guest is a true strategist on the ground, in the market, and across languages. He's a U.S. Navy veteran who served as an aviation ordnanceman, which means he knows a thing or two about handling pressure and bombs. Now he's dropping knowledge instead of payloads. Since transitioning out of the military, he's built a reputable name for himself in the real estate game, helping clients confidently navigate an often unpredictable market. But he didn't stop there. He sharpened his financial toolkit through the success in options trading, proving that he's not just building homes, but he's building financial wealth. He's a lifelong learner who is currently dabbling in both Spanish and Italian languages and currently eyeing a broker's license to take his expertise to the next level, whether it's real estate, financial literacy, or adapting in a fast-paced world. He's got a mind for mastery and a mission to elevate. Please welcome this successful Black man, Mr. Trey Ham, to the Six Figure Vet podcast. Welcome.
That is a phenomenal introduction if I've ever heard one. I'm
We
listening
gotta
like,
be
is that
sure.
me? Is that me? Okay. No. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Of course. That is, I try to make that the reaction to every guest. I don't think that we are giving our flowers enough. So over here, we don't do nothing else. We gonna give out flowers, okay?
I love it.
I like to start each and every episode with a mental health check-in. So how are you doing today for real?
2025 is January in 2025 was just a long year. January by itself.
The first 3 days after January 20th.
It was almost like with 2024 being however that was. 2025 said, just hold my beer. Y'all ain't seen nothing yet. So needless to say, it's been interesting, but above all, I'm blessed. I feel good. I had a good gym session before I came here, which helps. That's the true healthcare, which helps center me. So I'm feeling really good.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. And you know what? Somebody was asking me the other day, like I was talking to a colleague and they were saying something about they're like 4 or 5 years shy of 30 years retirement from the government space. And they was like, would you even believe it if they tried to take our benefits? I said, if you would have asked me that January 19th, I would have said I wouldn't believe it. I would have said no. But today, anything's
Yeah.
possible.
Any and almost everything.
Any and everything is
Right.
possible. I'm not putting nothing past nobody. So yeah, most definitely. But Trey, where you from?
Originally, I'm from South Carolina. You might hear a little come out.
Don't be trying to hide it.
Listen, Jeremy, it's there. It's there. You might hear it. It's a little.
Okay, so you're from South Carolina. How did you end up in the Navy? Walk us through. First of all, tell us about who you were before joining the Navy and how that even came into like.
Who was I before that? That's a good question. So before the Navy, I came in at 18. So I was just a teenager who had just got out of school. You know, I don't come from money. A lot of us don't. And so I didn't want to have that on my conscience of being a financial kind of burden to my parents, you know.
Yeah.
And so, here comes the military offering an opportunity to go to school. Interesting enough, that was how it was kind of showcased to me.
So
That
we could be honest here.
Yeah, it was kind of sold to me. You can go to school. Probably, and I had good grades in school. I didn't really get in trouble, never been to jail. I didn't do drugs. I wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
Probably just the funnier one who mixed with everybody, social, but not quite popular, right?
Yeah.
I
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle. Kids can be so cruel, but no, I was a kid who had ambitions. I think people describe me as somewhat of a walking dictionary. I was like T.I. without the gangster.
Okay.
Is how I would if it.
So you was like Stefan. Like, you know how Urkel had Stefan?
I wish I had the swag. I didn't have it then. So yeah, I was like Urkel. Yeah, Urkel, maybe the clothes weren't that bad. Urkel who could just dress a little teeny bit, just a little
Okay.
teeny bit. Yeah.
So you joined the military. Did you want to be an AO? So AOs, y'all, these are the people on the ship that deal with like the bombs. Like they deal with the bombs. They either on the flight deck, they're in the magazines, they're or maybe like with the squadron putting them on the planes. But did you even know what you were signing up for? Like, did you know what you were getting yourself into when you picked that rate?
You know how everybody, whenever you like download something new and it's got the terms and conditions,
Mm-hmm.
and you know how everybody don't read it. That's how
Of
I
course
treated my
not.
contract. That's how I treated the job. They said this is what we have available. I said, what is it? I said, I don't want to be behind the desk. Silly me. Silly me. I said I want something with a little more excitement. They said, how about AO? You'll work with guns. I said, sign me up. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So what
They
did
said,
you
are you
actually
sure?
do?
What do you mean?
What did you work in like the magazines? Were you on the flight deck? What
I
did
did
you
a little bit
do?
of everything.
Okay.
I started off in the magazines and then cranking or TAD, and trying to appeal to all the languages. I was temporarily moved to go work elsewhere. And
Mm-hmm.
that was in the kitchen as a food service attendant. And I was cleaning toilets. It was
Nothing to
humble
do with
work.
bombs.
Nothing to do with bombs. And then coming back, they said, "Hey, we like this guy. He has, my work ethic by way of working with people who work really, really hard."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I ended up on the flight deck. And so I had a certain level of acumen. Being a nerd helps. Being a nerd
Yeah.
helps, studying and whatnot. So yeah, picking up knowledge really quickly and QA, so quality assurance, to
Okay.
kind of oversee some things there. And then moving on to LPO at sea, and yeah, just all kind of different. I was a what we would call an EP sailor. I was
Okay.
once upon a
I mean, he
time,
was hot stuff, y'all.
once upon a time, once upon a time. But now I'm trying to transition some of those skills into the real world.
Okay. So what was the pivot? What was the pivot? Because it sounds like, you were able to do some hands-on stuff and you were building quite the eval slash resume
Mhm.
within your chosen rate. So what was the pivot to be like, all right, I think I want to take a chance at civilian life?
Family. I'm one of those people who believes in listening to the older people when they talk. And one of the common stories amongst people who stayed in the military for a while was that they had to sacrifice their family and they don't know their children. And I didn't grow up like that. Despite the fact that I didn't want to be like a financial burden to my parents, I had an amazing childhood. I had an
Yeah.
amazing childhood. And I only know family, right? That's what I
Yeah.
grew up with. My parents are still married. My grandparents were married until they passed. So that's all I knew. It was community. And so I didn't feel comfortable. I had a new baby girl and I didn't feel comfortable with the idea of constantly being gone and missing key moments, the first steps,
Yes.
and witnessing her grow up through a screen. So
Mm-hmm.
I took a chance. I took a chance.
Yeah, and you know what? And shout out to the people that are able emotionally to do that. But I just
Yeah.
never could understand it. Like when I had my son, they were like, yeah, when your year is up, you're going to see and you're going to deploy on this ship that is already out right now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I have separation anxiety when he is school and it's only 8 hours. You want me to do 8 months? What type of foolishness? Like, no, I can't do it. But
Mhm.
and I think I wish it were more, especially with men, more real conversations around the separation, like the emotional weight of separation away from family when you're out to sea. Because when y'all come out or when you transition out, I think it affects your mental health. I think it plays a part in your mental health being separated that long from your family and just getting reacclimated in.
It was definitely an experience. And then, just deployments, things that you get exposed to. This was
Hmm.
around 2016. So we were dealing with ISIS at the time, if that says
Yeah.
anything of what life was like, especially dealing with bombs.
Yeah.
So life was very different. You know, I'm very, very grateful that we all came back. They said the mission was to get back 10 fingers and toes, just like we left.
Right.
And so I don't think anybody comes out unscathed, right?
Yeah. Of course not.
That's a very different world, the military.
Mm-hmm.
And being in it, you have all the more respect for people who've gone before you. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm very, very grateful for the experience. It helped kind of propel me to where I'm at now.
You have taken like a complete 180 shift from what you were doing in the military versus what you're doing now. What was some of the biggest mindset shifts you had to make leaving the service?
They used to say this thing to us as AOs. They said you're either going to be smart or strong. And I prefer I
It ain't no in between?
no, there is, right. I prefer to try to be both. But I rather err on the side of smart, because after a while, all of that labor, you can only maintain that for so long. And so I remember seeing how people were coming in a little older and they had to do, let's call it, the grunt work, or
Yeah,
the dirtier work. And I was just thinking, man, I can't see myself in my 30s and 40s still working like I
that
was at
hard.
18. Yeah, that hard, that laborious, intensive work on your body. So that was enough for me to want to learn certain soft skills, talking, being aware. I don't have media training. But I do know a little thing about interacting with people. And
Mhm.
so that's what the world revolves around, is people. So uh, I made sure that I kind of made that the focal point of where I gathered better skills, so to speak.
Yeah. So you are developing these soft skills, as you call them. I love that. Definitely, definitely, you better coin that before I take it. You are developing these soft skills. How did you develop these skills? What made you want to go get into real estate? Where did that path even come from post military?
The source probably came from my dad. I don't know if you grew up similarly, but whenever we would ask our parents a word, they would say, go look it up. And I always happen to have a dictionary. And so that kind of helped me expand my vocabulary a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then listen to people speak. It was a movie that I saw. It was a movie that I saw that made me really interested in getting into that word. It was called The Banker. I think it had
Mm.
Samuel L. Jackson in it and Anthony Mackie. Amazing movie. Amazing, amazing movie. I saw that and I actually didn't want to be a real estate agent. I wanted to be a mortgage lender. That's what I wanted
Mm.
to be. And I saw that they worked closely together. And I
Yeah.
thought that if I just got, because I would always ask questions of, how do I get into banking? How do I get into banking? I didn't want to be a bank teller. There's nothing against that. I wanted to deal with the numbers and I wanted to do deals. And I just thought that if I got my license via real estate, I could get a foot in the door and then pivot into that. And it's to some degree, it's a bit taboo.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one giving a very clear direction how to get into it, but I was able to leverage an opportunity that presented itself. And they were looking for agents who wanted to do both
Oh.
banking and real estate. And I said, okay, this seems interesting. I had studied before while I was in the military to get my license. I didn't take it serious. So
Mm-hmm.
for the people who think I got it right on the first try, I didn't. I definitely let it fall by the wayside. Um, and then I came back because it was getting closer to me getting out. And something about when you're getting out, it puts a different fear in you to move with speed and urgency. And so that was enough. I mean, I remember not sleeping and staying up day and night studying. And then I finally
Mm-hmm.
took the test and I passed it, got licensed. My first year, I probably did a little under 2 million in production, a little
Okay.
around 2 million in production. And I was moving really fast, right? I worked for Keller Williams, so KW, and they were, I was new and they were going to give me the opportunity to have my own team, be over expansion, put me anywhere I wanted to go. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go to Texas, got hit with some adversity, and took a break from real estate. I did take a break for about
Wow.
a year. I
Okay.
went to school
Okay.
while I was kind of taking a break. Um, in college. College was college, and
It's
then
college post military because it's a hit or miss for a lot of veterans.
okay, I hear that a lot of people have this idea of like, I want to go to. They talk about it, right, and then somehow it just doesn't pan out with them going sometimes.
Yeah.
I had a family to take care of and support. So I had to do something, right?
Yes.
You just kind of feel weird being at home all the time, not doing anything. So college was cool. I was full time. I was learning. It had been a while since school, especially going into the Navy for about 8 years and then coming out and then going to school.
Yes.
But it was a very good, let's say, mental exercise of being consistent. That was, I mean, because we had the military, like we have to show up to work,
Yeah,
you know, no matter how early that is. So
right.
that was a really good mental exercise of doing schoolwork. I didn't stay with it because I did not want to do. I was going to school for HVAC, and I realized
You have no
after
interest in
doing
that.
after doing real estate, nah, it's not for me. It's not for
Yeah.
me. I'd rather speak. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most definitely. And I think we all getting out the military, we go through this phase. School is it's like a fallback plan almost. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to get paid to go to school. So if all else fails, I'm going to go to school.
for sure. It's a fallback plan, just like you said. Absolutely.
I'm going to go to school. But having an interest in what you're in school in, it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference. When I first got out, I was in school for supply chain management and logistics. Government contracting, concentration in government contract. It was the
Okay.
driest, most
It sounds like it.
boring. It was like watching paint dry every single day. It was so terrible. And I was like, I'm going to be miserable if I do this. I'm going to be absolutely positively miserable. And I was like, okay, what would you do if you didn't have to get paid
I admire that. The boring businesses are the ones that make money consistently,
so
though. I
much?
know nobody likes to hear that, but the boring ones do. They really do.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Hmm.
They do, but I also feel like as veterans, we are in such a unique, blessed position that you can get your disability. If all else fails, you could try to get a job within the government or with contracting or something. You can, like you said, we could go back to school if all else fails. So, unlike civilians, we could play around a little bit. We could
A
play
little.
around just
Right.
we have a little just a smidge in lights, probably like a
Right.
centimeter, a little more wiggle room to figure out what it is that we want. And then don't get the entrepreneurial bug. There's so many resources out here
Right.
that could put you in an advance just being a veteran. And then if you are a disabled veteran or if you're a minority, there's so many different tools and programs out here, even though they're trying to attack them to kind of put you ahead. But since you are in real estate, let's talk about something because a lot of my
Let's do it.
listeners are from Virginia. They do live in the 7 cities, and you probably been seeing it all over social media. Norfolk trying to give people 60 racks to move here.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
What is this about? Let's talk about, is this a good move? Is this just a ploy for gentrification? Let's unpack this. Let's unpack this, black man.
At my core, I'm an optimist. At my core, I like to believe that everything and everybody is not about money. So cities, right? The world consists of families. Can we
Mm-hmm.
agree with that?
Yeah.
I think that home ownership is a good way to pass down generational wealth to families. I know that that term is a trigger word, but I see it as right. For one, the cities need money.
Yeah.
The way that they get the money is by attracting people there.
Yeah.
Well, how do you attract people? You have to have some sort of incentives. You have to have incentives for families to want to live there, right? So they're doing what they can. I mean, is there a degree of business in it? Sure, we could look at that from that way.
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of an opportunity, right,
Mm-hmm.
to have home ownership, I think there's something significant to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course we know the city is gonna benefit. The bigger the population, the more the city thrives.
Absolutely.
So I used to live in Maryland. So coming from Maryland, Baltimore is it's in Maryland, it's right there. They have tried to build Baltimore. They kind of did a little bit, but they've tried to build Baltimore up so many times, but it's just like
Just not working.
it's not. And it's like people that are moving there into these, because for $60,000 they're gonna put there is it's gonna be what's the word that I'm looking for? They're trying to change the climate in these neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
So when you're the first influx, you have this really, really nice house in this not so great area. And the community just basically ran these people out. Do you see that possibly happening? That's what happened in Baltimore. Like they basically tried to do an incentive like this in Baltimore where, hey, if you buy a house in Baltimore, we'll sell it to you for like $1,000. They were letting houses go for as low as like $5, and I'm not even kidding. It was
Okay.
like just a couple years ago. They were selling these houses so freaking cheap, but the climate and the crime and just the environment in Baltimore, it didn't stick.
Okay.
What makes Norfolk different?
Okay. Well, I do think that we can look at it from 2 points of view, right?
Okay.
Let's just say I went the optimistic route and said, maybe this is all the things that people are praying for, a chance to buy a home, whether
Mhm.
it's something to maybe not the typical American dream of white picket fence, but it's
Right.
something that's yours, right? Maybe eventually to have some equity, pass something down to your children.
Yeah.
And then from the other point of view of having a certain influx of people come in to have them maybe build up some of the, let's just say, attractive features of a neighborhood to then find some type of ploy for the government to pull the rug from underneath them. I understand those things happen,
Yeah.
right? Do I think that we should learn from it? Pitfalls. I think financial literacy being taught at a certain level
Mhm.
could probably prevent a large bit of these problems,
Yes.
right? If we paid our taxes, right? If we paid our taxes, if we just were informed enough to invest, right? I think
Yeah.
that would do away with a large percentage of these problems, right?
Yeah.
Money answers a lot of problems, right?
It does.
It
And
does,
I wish Black people wasn't so afraid to say that.
right?
Like
No, it
we've
does,
have such a taboo relationship with money. Like money's not bad. It's
right?
not bad. It's not,
Because
and we
if you've
need
seen
it.
this offered to other communities, if you've seen this and let's say Jewish communities took advantage of it, they would just leverage it well. They just leverage it better. It's not to say that it's a negative thing. I think most things could be viewed negative or positive. It just depends on how you frame it.
Yeah.
If we just had better skills in terms of managing money, I'm not going to say a positive outlook, right? But certain actions back behind it, keeping up our neighborhoods, supporting and circulating the dollars in the right places. I think a lot of those problems would go away. We're not that much different in terms of everyone else. We make money just like other communities.
Yeah.
I just think it's a matter of how we execute. And sometimes we do it a bit poorly.
Yeah. That's true. So is right now a good time to buy?
It's right now a good time to buy. Interesting enough, they say it's always a good time to buy.
They do say that.
If you know what you're doing, there's never a bad market.
Mhm.
There's never a bad market. Now it has some challenges, but there's always a good time to buy because if we were looking and comparing this to 2020 when we locked in rates at around 2.5%,
Ooh,
back
yeah.
back then was a good time too, but people were bidding over asking prices by
Buy.
tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would just pose a question. If you bought back then, when we were saying, and people were asking, was now a good time to buy, and you had competition, and you said no, if you're looking and comparing now to then, wouldn't it have been better to buy then, even with
Of
everything
course.
going on? It's always a good time to buy. And with the way things are going currently, houses certainly won't be getting cheaper. So I think is a good time to buy. Now, disclaimer, I am no longer acting in the capacity of just a real estate agent, which we'll probably end up talking to this. So I'm more on the commercial side for
Yes.
the boring business of government acquisitions. But I'm sure my real estate friends would tell you that it's a good time to buy.
Yes. So, transitioning into that, how did you make that pivot?
Someone said something really simple to me that sometimes the difference between you and where you want to be is the people that you know. And so if that was the case, let's just say I looked to start implementing, I wanted to make friends. If nothing else I learned from real estate, it was networking,
Yeah,
power of networking and relationships, right? That's how we ended up here currently. And
very
so
much.
I happened to go to a kickback and I met a gentleman who was in the space. He actually was one of the people who would sign off on some things in regards to government contracting. I told him what I did. I actually helped him get I kind of helped him with his credit and get some access to capital. I do a few things. This is all legal, right? NMLS number 2491448. So this is not illegal, But yeah, I gave him some tips and advice that he could execute on to get some access to capital. And then just by way of just helping people out, he helped me get into this space. And I think we just closed on one of our first contracts that we ever bid on. So
Ooh. First government contract.
first government contract.
Okay, so for people looking to get into government contracting, first of all, before they get into government contracting, let's talk about commercial real estate. What is the biggest difference between not government, but commercial real estate and regular real estate outside of, regular real estate is like for homes and stuff like that, but like as far as as business. So you have people that are landlords, you have people that do fix and flips, but that's not commercial. What is it like on the business side for commercial real estate? What does that look like?
So for one, zoning, right? This area is only, let's just say simplistically, this has this use case, right? This is not for living, whether it's industrial use. I'm not going to bore you with all the technical terms, but so zoning, right? So let's just say an area is zoned for commercial, right? What creates the value is very simple. How much money this makes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much money does this building make?
So are you selling this building? Are you acquiring this building to rent it out? Are you what is usually the main focus when someone goes to acquire a commercial space?
So, and I'll try to give you two vantage points. So for
Okay.
on one side of it, if you are looking to, which is middlemaning, right, in government contracting, that is a thing that you can do, which is you get access maybe by way of relationships, right? Maybe you happen to know some real estate brokers who have some commercial spaces that they can lease to the government when the government has a need for it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you tap your friend on the shoulder, you say, hey man, you clearly need a tenant, they need the building, and you just kind of bridge the relationships.
Okay.
Now, that's kind of where we're started, but that's not where we're headed. We're looking to head in a much larger direction. Me being in dealing with mortgage or brokering, right, for commercial and residential deals, I want to go, hey, bank, knock on the bank's door. I have a lease here for the government. They want to rent this space out for 20 years. Is there any way that I can use this as collateral to buy this building? They
Mm.
give me the capital. Of course, I have to come with some, right? In the
Yes.
commercial space, you're coming probably with at least 25%,
Mm-hmm.
20 to 25%, depending on what programs you can kind of qualify for by way of the SBA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I wanna buy the building and then rent it to the government for 20 years. Rinse and repeat and do that in as many locations as I can here and abroad.
So how do you stay educated within this space, especially because I'm pretty sure if the market is currently changing on the residential side, I know that it's constantly changing on the commercial side. So how do you stay ahead of the curve?
Man, so I certainly don't know it all by any means. And a lot of things are trial and error. I think that's just life in general in terms of
Definitely.
getting to better places. So maybe by way of certain deals and of course, certain people. It always comes back to people. The most valuable currency for me is human capital, right? My
Yeah.
relationships. I want to protect those. And you can probably teach me something that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It may just so happen to be that, hey, we just had this regulation come up. I do have some friends who are in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
government jobs. We know that we fill those roles. And so
Yeah.
I may ask someone who's typically in some type of position of authority, and even if they're not in authority, what we call the streets, they know just as much. So
Exactly.
always looking to get information because information can change the situation.
Okay. So I wanna talk about your trading journey as well. There's a lot of hype online about trading, day trading, options trading. First of all, for someone brand new to trading, what's the simplest way that you would explain it?
The simplest way that I would explain trading is
Mm-hmm.
simply short-term investing. So
Okay.
investing, we look at for a minimum of like a 5-year period and beyond. 10,
Mm-hmm.
30. Let's just say we go by decades. I
Yes.
like the bigger picture. So investing, we're looking at decades. Trading, we may look in a few, depending on your style. I'm not a day trader, right? You can go day to day, right? So that's day trading. I prefer to go months, right? So I do swings, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can go months to years, and
Yes.
that's leaps. So think of short-term investing.
Short-term investing. Okay. There's a lot of hype online, like I just stated, about trading. What is the biggest myth that you could bust right now about trading?
Probably that you'll make a lot of money really quickly. As cliche as that may sound, I found that typically when you're not educated, unless you just have serendipity and luck is just on, you got to be God's favorite of all favorites. You 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 got to be topping some people in the Bible. Typically, you gonna lose some money.
Mm-hmm.
You're inevitable. Yeah, you're gonna lose some money for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think, or you're gonna pre-pull a trade. I did that.
Okay.
And COVID was a wonderful time to trade.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. Oh
The
my goodness.
excitement, I hear it.
Yeah, it was a great time. I bought some stock. This story is so I was one of God's favorites. I was one of God's
They
favorites.
do exist.
I had a nail tech. I had a nail tech that was doing nails out of his house during COVID because the shops
Hmm.
were shut down. So, got to keep my nails done.
You got to.
I'm going and I'm getting my nails done. Somebody I had a friend that was talking to me about trading, and so I'm like I had kind of been dibbling dabbling like since 2018, but like nothing serious. I think when I started trading, Bitcoin had just hit 18,000, and we was going crazy like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And then
Right.
yeah, so I'm like now I'm interested because now I got this son on the way, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just trying to figure out how to make money. So I go to this nail tech that's doing nails out of his home, and he's giving me companies to look into.
Okay.
Just like, hey, check these out. Check these out. Trade, they were like $1.26. They were like, I think one of them was like $2.37. Very cheap stocks. So I buy them. I think I put like $1,000 a piece into like three of them.
Okay.
Like nothing crazy, right? Well, at the time for me, I'm big money. Okay.
For sure. For sure.
So I put $1,000 a piece into them, and I go back and I check these stocks, and they're up to like $7. I bought them at $1.36, and this is like a couple months. This is like 3 months
Yeah.
that goes by, and they're at $7. I sold everything.
Of course.
I'm selling everything. Give me my money because I don't got
Of
time.
course.
Give me my money. I checked back in 8 months from that day. I think my son had just turned like 2 or 3 months. They were at $32. They were at 32. One was at 32, one was at 56, and I think the other one that was like 43 or $44. I've never felt that sick in my life.
I tell you what though, very, very good saying that I've heard. You can't spell million without a couple L's.
That was a big one.
They're lessons though. They're not losses. They're just lessons. That's all.
I'm
But
still processing the lesson in that one. Why would you do that?
you can't spell millions and billions without a couple of L's.
You cannot. At least two. I only got one more left that I'm taking. Okay? That was the first one.
Sure.
I'm not taking no more. As you
Yikes.
stated, right. Y'all, I met Trey or Tracy, for those that know him, at a networking event here in the Seven Cities. I think we met in Hampton.
Correct.
It was at an event in Hampton. So as you've heard him talk throughout this show about the importance of networking, how have you been able to grow your business and your personal life through networking? And what are some tips that you would give active duty service members transitioning out of the military that want to expand their network and really don't know where to start?
Yes, I'll give you two rules that I actually live by.
Okay.
One is the 33% rule. So a third of your time should be spent with people who are above your level. These are the
Okay.
mentors. These are the people who are capable of teaching you, whether it's by way of money. They are a representative of the life that you want.
Mhm.
The second third is going to be people who are at your level. These are your peers. These are the relationships that you need to nurture because one day they're going to be somebody.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates are peers, right?
Yeah.
So you need to maintain these relationships. And then the third is you need to be helping pull people up. You need to
Yeah.
be able to mentor people because what that does is it puts a certain pressure on you
Mhm.
to share knowledge.
Mhm.
You have to continue growing.
Yeah.
The last rule that I would say is called the 3% rule. 3% of your income needs to go to educating yourself, learning. Maybe that's courses, maybe that's books, maybe it's a combination, maybe those are events. For me, I like to go to InvestFest and I'm buying books and I
Mhm.
like to do courses. So I'm combining those. You do
Yeah.
your 3% however you want to. So if I make it very simple, if you're making $100,000 a year,
Mhm.
3% of that needs to go to educating yourself. And what
Yeah.
you'll find is that the more you educate yourself, the more your income grows, the more that 3% grows, the more your income grows, and they keep bouncing back off of one
Mhm.
another.
Yeah. I like that. So, how did you once you got out, how did you find these people?
Serendipity. I do believe in a higher power. I certainly
Mhm.
do. I genuinely believe, whether it's the universe, whatever your thing is, right? I genuinely believe that on your journey, you will meet the people that you're supposed to meet. I don't think that they're just placeholders. I
Mhm.
think that they serve a purpose. They say there's three reasons that people come into your life. Reasons, seasons, and lifetimes, right?
Yeah.
Some of these people were just for a season. A lot of them were for a reason. Very
Yeah.
few of them were for a lifetime, but those reasons I tried to stick to those. And then I use those as opportunities to meet more people. Like, who do you know that I need to know? Is probably a question that I'm asking. Probably because I was in real estate, right? So that was a thing for networking. But meeting the right person changes your life.
It does. I 100% believe that meeting the right people change your life. There's people that and I'm a firm believer in social media, y'all.
Okay.
I have some of the greatest jobs that I've had have came off connections that I've met on social media. I have a best friend that I met through Facebook. Like she's one of my rocks in my life. Education opportunities. I just had an event a couple months ago. Most of the guest panel, I think I had a Miss USA contestant, social media. You are
Yeah.
the only guest. You are the only guest that has came on this show outside of two others because I personally know them and they're veterans. But out of 40 episodes, only 3 of them have been through connections I've made in person. All the other ones I've met through jumping in inboxes, making a post, doing a hashtag. The power of social media. We're in a digital world. We can't
We're in
get
the
away.
digital age. This
We
is
are
the
in a
digital
digital.
age.
Yes, very
This is the
much
digital
so.
age.
So it is imperative not to it's imperative to be flexible and to be adaptive to what is happening around you. So I am so pro social media everything. I'm pro social media learning, building relationships. You see it, people are changing their lives via the internet by
Yeah.
making money. Yeah, I'm so pro that. And Trey, what spaces do you feel like Black men need more access to as it comes to wealth building?
In regards to wealth building,
Mhm.
first of all, it's a really good question. I think it kind of starts with understanding that we can't do it by ourselves.
Mhm.
I like to be surrounded by a village.
Yes.
The book was The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah,
And
that's a really good book.
what I learned from that book was you need to find people who are masters in their own area and you need to, for one, be able to add value, but be connected to these people for sure. There's not a lot of wiggle room. They say if you want to make it fast, you go by yourself. If you want to make it far, you go with the team.
You go with a team.
So I think kind of getting out of this idea of my business, my business, my business, collaboration, even at the highest level.
Yes.
What really got me was they said, would you rather have 100% of a grape or 50% of a watermelon? And that changed my mind with wanting to do it all by myself and not collaborate. So now I lead with that. I'm way completely collaboration over competition. any day of the week.
Then, Trey, tell the people where they can reach you at.
Okay, so let's just say that I'm doing so much better. On Facebook, I am Trey Ham II. And Instagram, I probably should find a better name, but it's a savage stoic. Despite the fact that I smile a lot, especially here. Normally it's not the Kanye face, but normally my face just kind of looks like I'm not smiling. I'm not looking mean. It's called a savage stoic. I don't know. I'm working on it though. That's part of my 3% in the education that I'm invested in. So
We gonna learn a better Instagram name. Instagram.
we're gonna learn a better Instagram name. I'm really not a social media guy, especially on Instagram, but Facebook typically is probably the best way to contact me. So Trey Ham II.
Okay. Well, Trey, it has been a pleasure. I just want to give you your flowers again. Thank you so much for
Absolute
stopping by
pleasure.
the Six Figure Vet podcast. Y'all, this has been another amazing episode of the Six Figure Vet podcast where we showcase the success stories of Black and Brown veterans that have successfully unlaced the boots. The Six Figure Vet is out. Hey y'all, it's a Six Figure Vet here. If you or any other active duty service member or veteran that you know is suffering with suicidal ideation, substance use, or mental health disorders, please tell them to call 988. The number is 988. They're trained crisis responders waiting to take their calls. You don't have to suffer in silence.